And we are back. It's your man, Odell, aka Artbyodell, back for another episode of Odell's Roundtable. First off, I want to thank you for checking out Odell's Roundtable. However you support it, watch it on YouTube, listen to the show, however you do, it's greatly appreciated. Normally I record out of the Live Hip Hop Daily Studios, but we're doing it remote right now. But shout out to Herb over at Live Hip Hop Daily. Also, shout out to my man, Jay Black, Innovative Black Station, my producer who always takes care of me. So if this is your first time checking out Odell's Roundtable, let me quickly explain. It's a place where we discuss relationships, right? So early on, in the early days of Odell's Roundtable, we talk dating, relationships, but kind of let that go. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West. It is what it is. You got to get in where you fit in when it comes to that. But when it comes to life, business, I definitely had a knack for just being able to network with great people. And I feel that a lot of times it's underrated. And I think sometimes when it comes to just relationships and networking, sometimes people can kind of feel shady about it. It doesn't feel natural. So I've kind of had a gift of being able to connect with people, right? And so also I want to use my platform to introduce the world to amazing guests I feel you should know about. And we are blessed. I have one of those amazing guests today with me here. First, let me give him a proper introduction, right? So he is someone who grew up in the Southwest like myself. He just happened to grow up on the other side of the Red River. He's a Texas guy, I'm an Oklahoma guy, but we're not going to get into battling at the very beginning. But he is a Texas man through and through, left his small town of Beaumont, right? And he ventured west when it came to college, right? So left Beaumont, went all the way to Nevada. And upon graduating from Nevada, started working with some huge name companies that a lot that you would know about, from your Microsofts to your Deloitte. And, he is someone who's a very bold person and took a step out on his own to create his own design firm, good brand. I've met him through my good friend Todd, him and Todd with here, Seattle, the things he's done there. But also too, man, this cat is, he's like a resident cook in a sense, right? So I'm talking about, if you follow him on social media, you'll see him cooking amazing things from Alaska to Colombia, right? So please help me welcome my guest, one of the few people I can say who can make time to watch his Cowboys play at a Cowboys club in Seattle, right? Play in a rock band, and still find the time to call me up occasionally, and we have an hour-long conversation or a good pep talk. So my man, Seth, Steezy in the house. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. That was the best introduction I've ever had. I really appreciate it. I should record that so I know how to introduce myself moving forward.
Hey, man. Hey,
That was the hard part.
Listen, do that. I always, when my guests tell me that my introduction is up to par, that always warms my heart. I will say, like, I've always been inspired by Sway.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And so he always, but it's just me. I'd like to celebrate. And anybody that takes the time to be on my show, I like to celebrate them. So, and I just, I bring on people who I feel are there. So, Seth, man, I mentioned on there Beaumont, Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to do this because I always want to give people information. It's like, it's interesting because I grew up in a place called Altus, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know about.
Yep.
Talk about being able to take like your small town values, right? And then combine that with big city dreams, and then keep some of those things, but then remove some of those things as well to help you progress in your career.
Yeah, I think small town is always, it's kind of a circle for me in my life. I've always felt like I would eventually end up back in a small town, whether it's back in Beaumont, whether it's Palmer, Alaska, another town that I lived in. I love small towns, but I knew that for the type of the work that I wanted to do, creative, music, I knew that I wasn't putting myself in the best position. A lot of creative people, they end up leaving the small communities where they come from because, it's fun to be a big fish in a small pond for a little bit. And then after a while, you kind of wonder if you have any sort of competition in you, and not even competition, more or less desire to see other things that are happening, and eventually it's going to call you to move to, you know, a different territory, a different city. And so I think, you know, when, you know, moving to, when we left Beaumont, moved to Arlington. From Arlington, we went to Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, when I was 14, Las Vegas was kind of like where I started really learning a lot about big city moves. You know, in Beaumont and in most of Southeast Texas, it's very, you kind of, your mouth and your feet move in the same direction. You're very much loyal to your community. And that's taken me a long way. That's one of the values I have never hidden or put behind me. I've used that as strength, because as I've gone into the bigger cities, you know, Vegas is a lot of talk. You know, 14 years old, I went to the mecca of marketing, dog. Like literally everywhere you look, whether it's like buffet specials on Friday or Showgirls or the new Celine Dion show, Michael Jackson, everybody's hustling. I mean, you know, like you can make 6 figures a year as a valet driver in Vegas. What?
You're getting sales pitch 24/7.
And you're just getting pitched 24/7 from commercials, like, you know, even like the furniture store commercials, like, hi, I'm Dave from the furniture store, and he's holding a lollipop, and he's just like in your face. And then you have like, I forgot his name, you know, the car dealership commercials on Saturday be hour-long shows where it's like, yo, pull this car up, we got the. So it's like, you know, for 4 years, my high school years in Vegas, I'm just getting hit, bam, 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 with all of this like flagrant hustle. Just flagrant hustle, some lies, some true, a mixed bag of everything. Everyone's just trying to get to the next month, you know? And so that was great for me, because nobody hustles where I'm from to that level. You know, people like small weight hustle, you know, like just they're kind of looking like 2 days out. Whereas like, you know, see like Vegas, people are looking like months out. They're trying to make big moves. And there's a lot of self-made people there. And a lot of those self-made people happen to be fathers and mothers of friends I went to high school with, you know, so to see them living in these upper middle class neighborhoods outside of the city in like the Red Rock Canyon area with like these pools that you would see on a Bad Boy Records video, you know what I mean? Right. And like, they don't even have a college degree. Like they just went to the city and they just started like finding their lane. And so, but, you know, between having those grassroots of like being honest, you know, I was raised in the church. You know, I played in the church band. I was an acolyte, crucifer, through, you name it. I did it. You know what I mean? Right. So, discipline, just that grassroots upbringing, community. I took those values with me, but, you know, some of the things that I didn't take with me, you know, once I left high school and went to Reno to college, I quickly realized that hustle of Vegas is in me. I never knew I was a hustler, but I loved it. You know what I mean? Right. I got into it. You know, I was doing everything. By the age of 16, man, I had so many hustles going on. Like self-admittedly, I was burning CD-ROMs. I had a CD collection in my locker, and I was selling them at 2 pieces a pop. You know what I mean? Like going on Napster. Hey, I admit it, you know. I got my hand on prepaid cell phone cards back in the day with the Nokia 5160s, where, you know, you only had certain amount of minutes on your card. So like, I had a friend who hooked me up with like unlimited cards. So like people come to me and buy the car. I mean, I had it going. So, you know, when I went to school, I took the humbleness and the community, the honesty, the like getting up every day, brush your teeth, wash your face, make your bed, make breakfast. Right. And, you know, go to the bus stop, walk your brother home from school, walk your brother to the bus stop, all those type of values in me, chores, all those type of things. They all just like, those were things that like stayed with me, but then I needed that edge, I needed that hustle. And when I found that out, I was able to take that to college, and college is really where I started finding my lane.
Real quick, I want to build on something you said though. Like, it's so true, because like when you go to another city or a bigger city area, like you said, you just don't really see people hustle the same way back home. It doesn't mean they're not hustling, but it's a different speed. And so it's similar.
Speed.
it's a different speed. It's a different, it's like a different game they're playing in. And so it doesn't mean that they're not lazy. It actually leads me into kind of my next question too, right? Because, I left Montgomery, Alabama to go to Atlanta, right?
Right.
And so for a time, I had went back to Alabama. I think I shared this with you, but I'll share with the people. But I went back to Alabama. And it's so funny because one of the first things when I did, speaking of that, right? So I have one of my best friends from life, my boy Pat. And so, Pat's a hard worker. He's grinding that, but he's never really left Montgomery, right? And he's doing well in that speed, and he understands that. But he's one of the smartest people I know. He has a degree in physics, right?
Right.
One of the smartest people I know. But he said something to me that was so cold and involved because when I got back to Montgomery, I was not happy. And I was like, man, this is that. So I remember talking with him, and I was like, oh, Pat, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And he said, hey, man, real quick, man. He said, because we talk about building relationships on those Roundtable. He said, hey, you met some cool people, from your travels to Seattle and things like that. And he was like, hey, man, he was like, you need to keep in contact with those people. And he said, because I can't give you those things. I can encourage you. I'm your best friend. I'm a rider for you. He said, but I can't give you those certain things, right? Talk about, because I think the thing is sometimes that it becomes uncomfortable for people to try to expand their circle. But what I respected about that, he was smart enough, like I said, he knew it wasn't like, Odell's going here and going there. He's trying to be different. He's just like, hey, this has always been you. You've always had this different thing about you, But like sometimes I think when somebody try to expand their circle or expand their reach, when they know they need to get some friends or build relationships in other areas, they get kind of held back of like, oh man, maybe going to look like I'm trying to be bigger than my britches. I'm trying to be outside of my circle. Can you talk about how, because you're a very bold person who has people from all spectrums. Talk about when you have to just, step up and say, hey, I got to expand my circle.
Yeah, I got to thank my dad for that. I didn't do any of that. I've thought about this for a long time because people ask me all the time, like, how is my circle of friends so diverse? And I think that one of the things, hopefully I could instill in my children, if I'm so lucky to find someone to put up with me long enough.
I'm in that same boat, right?
Right. But, my dad started early with us. When we started playing sports, we played all different kinds of sports, right? But we never played the sports in the same neighborhoods. Like, we played football in the hood, I was a Boy Scout in a predominantly white neighborhood. So like on Tuesdays, I went to Boy Scouts in a predominantly white neighborhood. And then Pop Warner football was 4 days a week. And that was in the hood. And then when it came to like soccer, AYSO, all those things growing up, we played in the Mexican neighborhood. My dad had a plan. He's like, yo, I'm gonna put these kids in different archetypes, so they understand that one, they can belong there if they want to, and two, it's not something it's not a community you should be afraid to go into, and three, most importantly, they ain't no different than you, Right. And from going to public school to then my dad putting me in the private school, those are two different environments as well. I mean, you go from public schools is a mixed bag, especially in Southeast Texas, Colombians, Mexicans, Africans, Venezuelans, of course, white people as well, but, predominantly, brown. Yeah. Then go into a private school and you know the deal. Now I'm a speck of pepper and a bowl of salt. So,
you already
so
know.
At the end of the day, I think that the boldness of me having the courage to walk into environments that are homogenistic and or not necessarily for what you would think would be for you don't really bother me. And then, we did a lot of travel growing up. My dad invested a lot of his free time in travel, whether it be, taking the Boy Scouts to all these remote places. And we didn't just do scouts in Texas. I mean, we went all over the United States of America. And then, summer vacations, we were that typical, Lampoon's Vacation type of family. Dad would just pack everything up, in the Forerunner cruising and we went everywhere. And so, I mean, even visiting native reservations, because my great-great-grandmother is 100% Native American, Alabama Coshada. So, I mean, just touching all the fibers, touching all the experience. And by the time, I was old enough to have my own car, driver's license, and, be 18 and be an adult.
Yeah.
I kind of have the wind behind my sails and the courage and the experience. It's not something that I figured out. I guess I just kind of carried on what I was used to. Because honestly, for me, because of my experience, because of what my dad exposed me to, like, I can only spend so much time in one homogenous community before I'm like, man, I need to get out and go see some other people. I need to go do this, because it gets like,
well, that monotony can kick in, but also too with a couple of things you said. The travel part. I mean, my dad was military, so I was born in Alaska, and then early childhood in Oklahoma, and then Alabama. I just call Alabama home because my mom is from there, and I went to high school and college there. But it's one of those things where you travel, you see those things, and then also too, I mean, people might not do it as much now, right? But yeah, I remember taking a family trip from Oklahoma to California, and I mean, you're driving from Oklahoma to California and stopping
everything
in Mexico and all these different things.
Yeah, Mexico, boy, that's like what you go through there.
Yeah. So you've seen those things. So it, like you said, it just it arms you more, right? Whereas people, if they've always stayed in the same area as well, you're just more prone, more confident to be able to. You just feel more comfortable because, like I said, thing is that even if you're in a setting that you've never been to, you just feel comfortable. The first time I came out of Seattle, this is my first time in Seattle, but I've been to different places. I felt comfortable. Most people were like, "How long you been here, man? Like, you know everybody." I'm like, I'm just comfortable wherever you drop me off at.
Yeah, right. Well, because of I don't believe that every city is truly unique in one way. I believe that because people make a city, and I believe that if you've traveled enough, you can draw similarities from other places you've been to make you comfortable in that city. Like living in Seattle for 7 years, then I finally went to Amsterdam for the first time, and like it wasn't that big of a deal because like Seattle's really European, like very European,
right.
Like one of the most European style cities. There's a lot of Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, type of influence here due to the fishing industry and the early industries of Seattle. It's also a city of water, city of bridges, city of bicycles, city of like commuting, and so like you get to Amsterdam and if I had stayed in Texas my whole life and I went to Amsterdam and like it's public transit and bicycles predominantly,
right?
Sure, you know what I mean? But it was just like, and the passive aggressive nature of European, they don't like to cause problems, so they're not in your face like New Yorkers and stuff. And like Seattle's very passive aggro, where people aren't going to go all the way. So like I fit right in. I was pulling experiences from all these other. I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. This is something that I can get a hold of. And so I think that the more you travel, the more you're exposed to you increase the probability of you being able to make a connection with the people and or the community and or the structure of the city when you go there. And that's why I really encourage travel, even if it starts with like visiting other border towns in your state. Just get out.
Travel is very important, but also too, one of the things you kind of spoke to, and it leads me to what I was going to speak on, is that I know for myself, partly why you're able to travel, you're able to go to different places, be in different settings, be comfortable, is that you gotta be comfortable with who you are too, right? And so I think a lot of times, and I speaking about being bold, but a lot of times people, especially right now too, like I'm always monitoring my niece and my nephew because they grew up with the internet, they grew up with social media, they grew up with these different things, and so things are being bombarded at them, right? Of like how you should roll, how you should look, how you should approach things. But even as adults, there's a lot of adults that never really got comfortable enough to delve into that, right? So I know myself, I came to grips with being the cat that's like, listen, I like to watch European soccer, I'm big into hip hop, but I like to wear certain kind of clothes. Like I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it, who likes it or not, right? Speak on that too, because I think a lot of times I think people avoid that, and this is a challenge. But the quicker you go ahead and get into that, a lot more things open up.
Oh, dude! Wow. Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, and I tell people all the time, the first 5 years of my life after college, and I would say even in college, I was performing and behaving to the vision that my parents wanted. I mean, my parents dumped a lot of time and energy into me, education into me too. My dad's a corporate guy, you know. I mean, we had great healthcare my whole life. Everything, you know what I mean? Think about me, government as a civil engineer, and then moved into
retired military. Same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we never had to pay for nothing. Like orthodontia, like I got good teeth because of my dad. Like, trust me, my teeth didn't come like this. You know, believe that, you know. And so I know the benefit and the value of being able to get our checkups and get 3 teeth cleanings a year and orthodontia, and our shots are up to date and physicals are up to date, and that all comes from his commitment to actually dropping an anchor and being a corporate guy. And so I know a lot of that he wanted. And I'm talking, you know, my dad puts on his boots. He's from Texas now. Puts on his boots, his khakis, tucks in his nice shirt, gets his briefcase, goes to work. That's my dad. That's who I saw every day. You know? On the weekends, I would see, you know, t-shirt and jeans, and, you know, bass fishing, Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know, overspreading, drinking beer in the garage, you know, talking about Camaros and stuff type of guy. But like 5 days out of the week, that wasn't him. Like he, in a lot of ways, you know, conformed to produce for his family. And I respect that. And so I did that for 5 years out of college, man. I was becoming a carbon copy of him. I was becoming miserable, man, you know, because I didn't feel like myself, and I felt like I was missing opportunities as they came by. And it started with tattoos. I was like, I always wanted tattoos, you know, and my dad never wanted me to get tattoos, so I was already a black man. So he's like, yeah, tattoos to that just adds to your narrative. You know what I mean? Like, you know.
I know, we know.
Yeah, you know, so like after 5 years, I started getting tattoos in safe places that I could still have clothes on where people wouldn't honestly know. And I started slowly creeping towards, you know, towards really letting it all out and getting all the sleeves going and all this stuff that I have now. In fact, you met me on that journey. You know, if you look back to the first photo we took back at the brunch spot in Georgetown, Seattle, I have this one and I have this one, and that's it. Everything else is bare. But other than my chest was done, but you couldn't see my chest, right? And it got to about, you know, 8 or 9 years, and my mom's a professional musician. I always played music, especially played in the church, and I played in a couple of punk rock bands in high school and stuff. And that kind of life was hidden too. Like that was kind of like life that most people didn't know about. But man, like about like 27, I just went all in. I started just like, I joined a band in Seattle. I auditioned for them. And I made it. They already had an album out. They just got back from touring. Their drummer had some issues and they needed someone to step back in immediately. I did that. We had a studio already. It's like, I just buckled up. I was in a perfect environment. We already had a touring schedule. It was like, oh man, this is dope. So I did that. Then I had a great boss. We went on a trip one day. Every time after work, I would hide I would never go out with my boss or stuff after work because I didn't want him to know like tattoos and everything and all that. Cause like I always wore like full sleeve collar shirts to work. Right. One day we were like, I think in LA, and he's like, we're going out tonight. I don't care. And he's like, and dress in your normal stuff. So I come downstairs and like some Vans slip-ons, some like jeans, a t-shirt like this, and my sleeves are out. And he comes walking down in some jeans and Black Flag tee because he was an old like punk rock guy. I didn't even know that. And he's like, yo. And I was like, yo. And he's like, dude, this is great. I never knew this side of you. Right. After that, man, I started really like embracing. I started posting more about me playing in bands. I started being more open about my expression and my art and like my tattoos and all that stuff. And what's crazy is, and you nailed it. That's why I was like, oh man, I can't believe you know this secret. But it's like, once you are your truest self and you put that person out into the world, the opportunities, people who have been looking for you now can see you for who you are because you're not hiding in this cloak. You're not hiding in that you're not. And when you take the cloak off and reveal yourself, some people are going to be like, I knew it. I'm not fucking with him. But others will be like, what? Okay, cool. Like, that's what I thought. And like the direction of where I wanted to go in life, just like kind of people started appearing. So if you want to build network, with people who reflect who you really want to be, you gotta, at some point in your life, earlier than later, you gotta start showing your true colors, you know, because my friend group went from like 50 to 80 people of us like not really knowing much about them. We're all corporate people, all making good dough, and we all just do happy hours. We're all beautiful people, yada, 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 yada. But then like when I started coming out, they're like, yo, I play punk rock music. Yo, I'm going to eventually start my own company, you know, and all these other things. My inner circle of friends went down to like maybe like 20, but like we're all dialed in. Like most people I work with now or that I hang out with now are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Run their own businesses because they know I had a passion for that and I was being vocal about that, or they in the arts or tattoos or whatever it is. And so I feel much more whole now than I was when I was like trying to be this.
Well, also too, I want to speak to that because that's the thing also is that for one, sometimes it's hard to go into your own, right? Because people are like worried about what other people think, which is a whole other discussion. But also too is that once you do that and you allow your true self to be, it doesn't mean you're going to run everybody off. But like I said, now things open up. Like one of the best things, and I reference my friend Pat again. I'll reference again, but shout out to my brother Damon and TJ as well. I want them to feel like they're not mentioned. But one of the things I always love about Pat is that, you know, he would tell me early on a lot of times, like, he was like, Odell, man, you got a little different things you got to do, man. Like, go draw, go do this. He's like, embrace that. He was like, man, sometimes, man, he's like, I know you don't want to hang with me tonight, man. Go with the art class. We were in college together. And sometimes I'd be like, man, I don't want to hang out with those guys, man. He's like, yeah, you want to hang with those guys, man. We're roommates. He was like, man, go hang with those guys. Go to the art department, man. Go hang with those guys. Go do this and that. Because once you really are who you are, other people are going to appreciate it, or they're not, but then you know. And so I think that's...
And it's not even malicious. It's not even like, oh, I hate you. I was just like, I'm not on that lane.
Right. And then like I said, but also too, because the peace of mind part is that a lot of times my friends won't even mention certain things to me because they know who I really am. Like if I was trying to play that game of, oh, I want to appease, then they'd be like, well, they'd be like, man, you can't call Odell for that. You're gonna call this for you're not gonna call him for this.
I got like 10 friends here in Seattle. I wish we could call them. You could call them separately and like say like some stupid shit. And they know me so well, like, you know, you'd be like, hey yo, Seth, wants to invite you to the surprise picnic that he's gonna do. I mean, I know my homie. Seth ain't doing no surprise picnic. Like that grinding. Like that dude is at his home office right now with like just like hundreds of windows open on his screens, like designing stuff. Cause like I finally was honest about it. Like I got to, the end of my 20s and I was like, I didn't find as much fun in like Friday night, Saturday night going out, I still like to go out from time to time, but it wasn't my wave. And the interesting thing is when I started spending more time on music, being true to myself, being honest, getting into motorcycles, which some I always wanted to get into, like most of my friends, I built my businesses off of other business people who identified me as a young person trying to build businesses. And I have so many mentors now who will just like, yo, I just learned this thing about, this accounting technique. I'm going to drop by your house real quick and show you how to do this. I didn't ask for that. It's just they know that that's where I'm at in the stage of my building, because I'm putting it out there, or I got musician friends for doing this whole COVID thing where we're going to start recording music and passing it to each other. We're going to try and record like a little EP. Nice. Between, like 4 or 5 of us, just to keep the juices flowing. And, I didn't say that. They reached out to me like, yo, we know Seth's itching, so let's get Seth going. And so like, once you're honest about yourself, and it comes with a cost, let's be honest, it comes with a cost. I still have sleepless nights where I'm like, dang, man, I could have been on my second home by now. I was making cash. I was hurting them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know that those days will come, and I'm happier.
The happy part is big, man, because you're so right about that. I know for myself as well. When I really, and ironically too, you mentioned a trip to Seattle. That really was like the beginning, one of the beginning of my journey as well. Because when I flew out of Seattle in 2014, I was working then for like a corporation, one of the biggest. one of the biggest, the main person, the main website with cars and stuff like that. I'm not gonna give them no free plug, but online cars.
Right.
Yeah, I ain't even giving them no free
That's why
plug.
I didn't say it. That's why I didn't say it. I was like,
Yeah. So I was working for them, but and I was making good money. And when I flew out there to cover the Bumper Shoot Festival, it was like, in my head, I always said like, okay, I used to always make this idea like I'm a festival guy. I can go to festivals and cover them, and I could really do that, right? And I did them here in Atlanta for local things, and I've been to Birmingham, covered some, and I'm not knocking the ones in Birmingham here in Atlanta. It's just it's close to me, so I seen that, But
Right.
when I got on the plane and flew out there, and then I go to the press table, and I'm like, and now the press table thing is looking a lot different. I'm seeing people from Rolling Stone and stuff like that, and I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be here. You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed, and then. And I know, but then I started seeing stuff, and then I started opening up who I am, and I'm like, hey, I'm from Atlanta. This person, I met this person. I mean, I still got people that I met from that trip today, from, being on the radio and things of that sort. So, but that only came from when I really got on a plane, got out there, and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I am, And I remember one of the funniest things I'll tell you real quick. I remember like we were going to cover, I think, artist Danny Brown.
Yeah, I know.
And so we're walking to the area, and the girl was like, no, we're pressed. We can walk right to the front. And I said, okay, cool. We walk to the front. And I remember standing there, and at the time, I had like my iPhone 6, and I didn't have no camera really. I think I had like a little notepad and stuff. And I'm standing next to this guy, and he's like, I mean, everything, right? He has like all these digital cameras, all this stuff, all these different things. He got a person next to him and everything. And I was like, first I was like, nah, I shouldn't even say that. I feel like embarrassed. I was like, no, bump that. You know what I'm saying? So I started a conversation with the guy, but he was like for this big publication, but he was more enthralled with the fact that he's like, man, you flew from Atlanta? And he was just, and then we just had a conversation, but it's because I was comfortable who I am, and I feel more people just have to do that, right? So
I mean, and I think that traveling, I think that having the courage to talk to other people gave me the courage to like express myself. There's like 4 or 5 people that I can point to. The biggest inspiration was my friend Taylor. My friend Taylor was a bartender at this Mexican restaurant across the street from my house.
Okay.
And you're talking about piercing red hair, piercing blue eyes, and you're talking about there's not an inch left on her body of tattoos. I mean, this girl is punk rock to the core. It's crazy. Like I saw her and I was just like, dang. And, we never got into the details of her life and, how she got to bartending and whatnot. But, she grew up in the neighborhood in Seattle, and she's from this soil here, and comes from a big family. And I kind of picked up the vibe along the way. She kind of was the black sheep of the family. Mm-hmm. And one day she was just like, she just showed me a letter, and I was like, what's this? She's like, I'm going back to med school. I was like, what? I never thought you even got into med school. And we would talk like 2 or 3 times a week because I lived right across the street. So I'd come in from my burrito and margarita, 2 or 3 times a week. And started going in on her shifts because we were friends and we would talk about, stuff back and forth. And I was like, damn, Tay, you're going to go back to med school? She's like, yeah, I got in. I just never went. And she's like, I'm going back now. And it's crazy now, like, fast forward years later, you got this physician who is in scrubs, is just tatted up, and she's just doing things like when you think of a doctor, that's not what you think of. When you think of a physician, that's not what you think of. But it's like she's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. And like when I saw her do that, I was like, dang. Yeah, like really, the only person that's stopping you is you.
Man, that's so true. Like, yeah, when you want to do something the way you want to do it, and like I said, usually that biggest hurdle is yourself.
100%, man. I battle with myself every day.
It's a constant battle, man. Constant battle. But I do want to talk about that. Not speaking of battling, because I mentioned the real ones, right? And what you have done. So, like for instance, like I want to make sure y'all follow Seth on social media. I want to make sure you give y'all the social media stuff. But, bruh, like I remember once again, like I said, speaking back when we first met. I guess it was remnants of that kind of stuff, right? But like your cooking and just the whole celebration and just the whole of community and just fellowship with cooking, man. Like, tell the people about the real ones and what you've been able to do with that, because I want you to give it justice.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. So my two favorite channels on TV, other than the sports networks, which I only watch when I want to watch the sports, soccer on Saturdays and football and basketball during the weekdays, is Travel Channel and Food Network since I was a kid. And I've always loved travel, obviously, because we were a traveling family. So I love watching Travel Channel to see, like, oh, maybe I can convince Dad we go here next. Food was just cool because, you know, we were a cooking family. Going out to eat in our family was a special occasion, especially in the South. You know, we cooked big. There were a lot of people always stopping by, you know, type of family. And so as I got older and I started to realize I had a passion for cooking when I was in college, because a lot of my friends, you realize in college how many of your friends don't know basic things like laundry or how to cook.
Yes.
Or how to even decently wash their ass. You know,
real quickly.
Y'all must have had an army at home taking care of y'all. Like, how did y'all survive, you know?
Real quick.
Semester, you know, one semester, you figure out, like, damn. So I became, you know, the friend that everyone knew could get down. So, and, you know, from all different communities, you know, growing up with Latino friends and growing up with obviously African influence, Creole influence, Cajun influence. Like I could do it all, man. I could take a packet of ramen, you know, with some on-market sale shrimp with a couple of eggs and some fresh green onion and a little bit of chili oil. Yeah, that's the best ramen you've had in your life. That shit cost me $8, full stop. You know what I mean? People were like, damn, man, you know? So I just kept cooking. I was always embarrassed to like try to cook at an elite level because I wasn't a trained chef. You know, I'm not trained, but I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmothers and my father. My father was basically more of a pit master. Like he didn't really do much in the kitchen, but like no one touched the grill outside. No one touched the grill. Yeah, don't you touch that. I mean, I would get excited when he's like, Seth, you go check on the ribs, maybe turn it if they look dry. I'd be like, I get to do it. I get to do it. You know what I mean? So really for the real ones, man, I always once I stepped out, left the corporate world, started my design firm, I started to think about, I got 6 months into doing my design studio, and all I was doing was my work. And I was like, outside of working out and like doing like the mental health and self-care stuff every day, I needed a passion. My band had broken up. We had stopped playing shows and whatnot. So that little nugget of passion,
a relief,
on the shelf right now. I couldn't do nothing with it. I got my drum kit collecting dust in the garage. So I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do? And so I ran into a good friend of mine, Mike Law, who, when I was playing in the band, had a barbecue restaurant next door called Bourbon and Bones. And I was walking out of practice one day, and it hadn't opened yet, and I smelled pecan wood burning. And pecan wood, we don't have pecans up here. Pecan, tomato, whatever you want to call it. We don't have these trees up here, but in the South, you know, we smoke with pecan wood. And I smelt it, and I was like, damn, that's pecan wood. You know, I'm used to smelling that. You know, my dad, you know, doing his thing. I grew up with it. Some things you just know. So I walked behind this restaurant, which was literally shares a street with the studio that we rehearse in.
Wow.
And there's this guy stuffing wood in, and he's got these racks of ribs in, and I'm like, hey man, like, is that pecan wood? He's like, yeah, how'd you know that? And I was like, well, you know, here's where I'm from. You know, here's what I know about barbecue. And he's like, yeah, I'm from Carolina, North Carolina, and I'm starting this barbecue restaurant called Bourbon and Bones, and that was 6 years ago when we met, you know. And so after rehearsal, I'd always go over to him because at 10 o'clock at night when we got out of rehearsal, whatever meat he didn't sell, he'd sell it for half price. So you know, I get the burnt ends for half price. I get the dry brisket. All you gotta do is wake it back up with a little bit of moisture. You get home, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And we created a friendship. So, you know, the restaurant didn't last forever, unfortunately. But he went to New Orleans for a couple of years after that and then moved back, and we got back in touch. And that's how this all came together, because I said, yo, I got this idea where we start recording our sessions of cooking together, because at that point we started becoming friends. He'd invite me over to his house. We'd cook in his backyard. He'd come to my house. We'd cook at my place. We'd go camping. I catch a couple fish, in the river, and then we'd put it on some cast iron skillets out in the middle of nowhere and just make a whole roasted fresh trout with lemon butter and thyme and tarragon, the type of shit that like you would want in a restaurant. We're doing right by the river over open coal. And I'm like, yo, man, I think we need to do something for the real ones. And that's where we came with the name. I was like, for the real people, not the white tablecloth chefs, the people who are out here cooking. Our first episode, the fried chicken episode, was great because we did an origin on 5 different styles of fried chicken and where they came from. And meanwhile, we're recording, and he's got his kids running between our legs and, knocking over things, and we're having to pick them up. And like our film guy was like, oh, should we cut that out? I was like, nah, leave it. Because this is for the real ones, people cooking in real situations. You know what I mean? Because 90% of the people who cook are not in professional kitchens.
Right.
And they got to make do with what they have. They got kids, they got responsibilities. Their kitchen might not be open range and gas range. They're cooking on electric. Hell, even like I know these guys in Montreal. They got a whole segment where they cook on hot plates. Like literally, you know what a hot plate is?
Yeah.
They literally cook on hot plates. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I wanted to do something between, and also the other thing is I want to do a relationship between a professionally trained chef, because Mike in the show, he's traveled all around the world. He's a professionally trained chef. He studied in Germany. He went everywhere around that area of Europe. Came back home, worked in a lot of great restaurants, knows a lot of the big names, is a big name. You search Mike Law, it pulls up a lot of his articles. And then a nobody like me that he respects.
Right.
And is bold enough to respect, because I say bold shit and I take bold angles at the recipes that I have. And so to have this like Jekyll and Hyde like type of like play off of each other, because he knows the scientific and the rudimentary element of everything of how it should be done. And I'm like, nah, let's just throw a little more flour in that. You know what I mean? Like I cook like this, and he cooks with like, he cooks like, he's very like, he's the chemist, and I'm more like the vagrant, you know what I mean? But the food comes out. And so I think that'd be good.
I love that about that, because for one, I mean, it's ironic. Recently, my guest I had this last week, Gear, we were talking. I used the cooking analogy, and I talked about how like same here, right? Like I'm no, classically trained chef, right? But I'm comfortable in the kitchen. A lot of people, I'm comfortable in the kitchen, and so one thing I liked about your stuff and the real ones as well is that because of where I work now, I have access to a lot of cool things as far as food, right? So sometimes I might not go have like a tablecloth type meal, but I'll have the same kind of ingredients that you might have for that, right?
Sure.
Right. But what I liked about what you were doing is that you have like a couple of high-end ingredients, some low-end, mid-range, but when everything was done, the presentation was like at those kind of things. And I think that's something that a lot of people, even when you look at it from a life standpoint, right? Like I think sometimes far too often, I mean, even myself included, I'm like, man, I need this kind of camera, I need this, this, and that. But I've always noticed that when I get progress, is when I say, you know what? Okay, I got okay microphone, but I got a laptop, I got this. Let me get this ball rolling, and then let me start learning about some things. But like, what I liked about it, you didn't wait around with it. You had that idea, that thought, and you just roll with it.
Everything's on the iPhone. Everything we do is on the iPhone. Why? Well, as the creative director of the show, I want to keep it a little raunchy. I want to keep it a little gritty. You know what I mean? So it feels like literally someone is just like recording what we're doing. You know what I mean? And that type of outlook, has gone a long way. But now we're doing sauces now, man, and that's big for us because we're about to release our sauce line and our merchandise line, which is exciting.
Very exciting.
Everything's minimal run, so we will sell out. But we lost our editor last year. He had a death in the family. And so like you, I got 5 episodes in the bank right now that I haven't even put out into the world. And that's primarily because we had to identify a new editor, and we finally found one at a good rate. So videos are coming back soon. Sauces are dropping.
Yes.
Website is done. Merchandise, we're just waiting for merchandise to arrive any day now.
Well, while we're doing that real quick, because before I go into my last question, I want to just give the people like information, Instagram, things like that, how they can get in contact with you and connect with you.
Yeah, so me personally, you can find me on Instagram at Seth Steezy. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, so I wouldn't even bother you wasting time. As for the good brand, it's No Bad Brands, NOBAD brands. We're exclusively on Instagram right now, but we'll expand that palette if you want to see some of the stuff we're working on. For the real ones, you can find us on Instagram at fortherealones.tv. For the real ones, plural, .tv. And then for the real ones on Facebook is our page. And I think, we have some websites as well. We have a fortherealones.com that we're going to be launching soon. So if you're on the Instagram page or you're following us on YouTube, search For the Real Ones as well. If you get any one of those channels, whether me personally or whether one of the professional accounts, we usually update them with everything involving the multiple businesses that I'm doing right now. But it's an exciting time. It's exciting to finally get something done. I've had all these things in flight, you know what I mean? So it's like one thing finally is done, and hopefully we can monetize what we bring in and be able to pay our editors properly, and then keep making sauces. We just want to, for the real ones, we just want to pay for our hobby. We're not even trying to make a profit. We're just trying to make enough that we can dump it back into our editors and our ingredients to make more dope shit. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll say this though: you're putting the effort and everything into it of full service though. So that's what I like about that as well. So even though it could be that to pay for your hobby, I mean, you're going at it with the same tenacity and with the same drive of the full-fledged business, and that's one thing I commend you for. So, always in the show with this question of, what are your keys to building great relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because some people have a greater intuition than others. Like, I know what I'm looking for in friends because I've had a lot of bad friends.
That could be a good thing sometimes, right?
Yeah, I've been taken advantage of a lot in my life. On my journeys through life, I'm a giver. I always give people the shadow of the doubt, and it's their job to earn the distrust, but I always give the trust up front. So I've had I think at this point, at 35, which is certainly not old, but certainly not young, kind of middle of the pack, like cruising. Good age to be, don't get me wrong. I have enough data, enough past information of what I found beneficial in friendships and networks than not. And how do I do it? How do I look for, what do I do? I kind of align my passions with communities, and I go into those communities. So I'm really into punk rock music, and there's a lot of punk rock meetup groups here. So I go hang out with those people. There's a lot of entrepreneurship groups. I go hang out with those people. As far as like the food industry, it's crazy, dude. Like a lot of my friends are from the food industry, and like 4 years ago, I didn't have, the only friend I have from the food industry really was my buddy Mike and my homie Juice. But like now that I'm actively cooking and doing the show, like within 4 years, I've been invited to all these like events where like chefs, when they're not cooking in the kitchen, they're at their house and they invite over all their other culinary friends. And it's just like putting yourself into those communities where you're most passionate. And then like, I never would have thought, 4 years ago that last year I get a phone call and it's like, hey, can you come to Vashon Island tonight? I'm like, man, it's like 2 p.m. Like Vashon Island, like I gotta hop on a ferry. I gotta go all the way. Yeah, well, my friend called me, who owns a beautiful home out there. My friend Brady, who won a James Beard Award at Canlis this year, which is the top restaurant in Seattle, saw your show and wants to cook with you tonight. Can you make it? What? What? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, yeah, never mind. I'll be there. Let me get my knives and stuff, you know, and like, bam, I was on the ferry and they're like, but that's not what I did it for. I just started aligning my passion with my activities. And by doing that, you start hanging out with people in those communities of passion. Right. And people see passion. Come on, man. You don't have to be good at anything. People see passion. Like,
people see passion. Listen, that right there is so true, because I love what you said about aligning yourself with things that you're important about, plus knowing what you're wanting to do too, right? So I think also too, that's another great tip in regards to relationships, is knowing what you want and what you don't want, right? Because a lot of times, you know, and it goes back to, once again, once you became clear who you were and what you're looking for, that's when it, you know, opened up those kind of relationships. So a lot of times, you know, we talk about building relationships, but I appreciate you bringing it back to the fact that a lot of times it starts with you, man. You have to know who you are, what you are, what you're looking for, because if you don't, you're not, you're going to run into, like you said, you're going to learn those bad relationship examples.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like, if you show your passion, even if you're not good at it, right? If you're just showing that you're passionate about it, somebody in that community initially is going to pick you up and be like, yo, let me show you how to do this, right? Let me show you how to get it done. Let me show you how to do all that. But if you're that person, and we've all been there before, like hip hop ciphers or motorcycle rallies or car shows or art shows, there's always those 1 or 2, 3 people that everyone can spot in the crowd who really don't have a passion for it, but they're there for a reason, because they need a connect in there for something that's going to benefit them, benefit themselves more than the community and the people who are there for the culture and for the passion. So like, just go where you're most passionate, because then you don't have to fake it, and people will find you. People will recognize it, and you won't have to feel strange when you walk in that door, you know?
That's so true. And I'll just tell people, I mean, to emphasize what Seth says. I mean, when I was on FM radio, you know, that opportunity became available because I would just go to the studio and sit in the back, and I was just happy to be amongst it. And I always, you know, I wanted to be on the radio, but at the same time, I was just happy being in the studio. But because I aligned myself, and a friend of mine invited me there, and next thing you know, I was actually on the radio, right? So like you said, you have to go, you know, and sometimes it goes back once again, is that you got to be bold enough to put yourself in these circles where you're not great yet. And I think that's a whole other episode. When, like, the quicker, I'll just give you this last gem, the quicker you are with starting small, you get a lot done, right? Because anytime I'm trying to do a project, and I'm saying, because, you know, like yourself, like, I research things, right? So I know, like, oh man, they got these kind of cameras, they got this kind of audio, this kind of microphone, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, but you have a phone, you have a laptop, like, get started. And when I do that, and I'm okay starting small, I can see the growth and it happens. But when I sit there and try to do all these things and try to worry about that stuff, and that's the same with people, right? Like, you sit here and try to say, hey, I'm going to meet this person, that person, this person. Like, no. How about you just be who you are, figure out what you like, what you're going to start doing, and start doing that. And then next thing you know, that person is inviting you to cook dinner with them or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it's just like, you know, it's. I think people who are great at what they do, for the most part, they don't really want to big people. You know, they don't want to be like, oh, I'm bigger and better than you. Like, most people who are good at what they do want to share. And like, whether it's me becoming a food personality online, which I never thought I would even be halfway to that, or, you know, not playing the drums for 6 years and auditioning for a band and making the audition, and then going to your first rehearsal, knowing you're going to miss some licks, knowing you're going to have some failures, and go in there still and like play through the songs and, you know, make some mistakes. And like, you're waiting for the moment where you're going to get reprimanded. And like everyone there is for the same reason. Like, yo, man, we get it, dude. All good. Let's just do it again. All right. 1, 2, 3, bam. And you go back in and you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't so bad because they recognize I want to be there. So it's not about being perfect. It's about like making sure you show up, wanting to show up. If you do that in the communities and networks you're trying to build, whoever does make you feel bad, shame on them. Because that once upon a time, they were you.
Okay, man, listen, I think that's a great note to end it on. Listen, Seth, first off, man, I am excited for you, man. I'm very proud of you because, like I said, we've been able to connect and see how this journey has gone, man. And for the real ones, you already know merchandise and sauce is coming my way as well. I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to it, but this, I really want people to take from this conversation, though, is that regardless of, you're doing your own creative things now, you still, once again, you take the small time values, you combine it with the big city dreams, but then also, too, you took a lot of the work ethic that you have for the big companies and from the corporations, and you applied it to yourself as well. Like, these, taking those things and using them, but then also, too, the same approach with meeting people and friends and networking. You said, hey, let me be the best. You said, hey, I saw a lot of bad friendships, a lot of bad things. Let me be a good person, and let me throw that energy out there. Let me know what to attract and what to pull back. So, man, great conversation. I knew it would be, man. I can't wait to get back out to Seattle. I talked with my girl, Casey Carter. She's in Seattle as well, so I got to get back out there sometime soon. Hopefully when things get a little more calm down, brother, you know how it goes, man.
Yeah, you got a place to stay here, man.
Man, we got to do it, man. But listen, everybody, make sure you follow Seth on all social media. Follow him. He's a great follow. Make sure you follow me, Artbyodell, Artbyodell. Listen to the show, subscribe, give us a like, all that kind of good stuff, man. And it's Odell's Roundtable. Signing out.